if you leave an apple on the sidewalk, it rots.
Right, it just breaks down.
And if a feudal empire lasts too long, well, it violently collapses.
Yeah, inevitably.
Today we're looking at a framework that argues those aren't two different things. They are the exact same biological process, engineered by the exact same designer.
It is a profound shift in how we, categorize reality. We usually separate the physical decay of matter from the social decay of human history.
Right.
But the concepts we're exploring today treat them as identical gears in a much larger machine.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We know you love looking at the world from multiple perspectives, tearing apart the way things work, and figuring out the hidden mechanisms behind the everyday stuff we all just, take for granted.
Exactly.
Today, our mission is to explore a set of excerpts from a deeply philosophical and spiritual text. It's called There is a Supernatural Soul in the Universe by Sui Feng.
And it takes the absolute most mundane things you can imagine, like literal rat and farmyard animals.
Yeah, chickens.
Right. And it uses them to build a case for a grand prearranged design, a super wisdom, or a greatest creator controlling the mechanics of the universe.
Now, before we jump into the deep end, let's just lay our cards on the table here.
Yeah.
We are not here today to prove or disprove the existence of this supernatural soul or a greatest creator. That is entirely up to you to decide.
Right. Our goal is strictly impartial.
Yeah, we just want to unpack the fascinating logical architecture built within this text, because the way it connects the dots between a piece of rotting fruit and the rise and fall of human civilizations is, well, it's a wild, thought-provoking ride. Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the very first piece of evidence for this flawless cosmic design.
Which is decomposition.
Yeah, literal rot.
Decay is something we are biologically conditioned to recoil from.
Oh, for sure.
You watch an apple fall from a tree, and as it breaks down, it becomes visually repulsive. It smells. Over time, it turns into an empty shell, and eventually, it just vanishes.
Right. We perceive that process as a failure of order. It feels like an end state.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this framework completely flips that perspective. Think about decomposition differently for a second. In this worldview, it isn't an end state. It's a transcendent energy conversion.
It's like a perfectly engineered cosmic recycling program where absolutely nothing is wasted.
What's fascinating here is the absolute necessity of that mechanism.
Right.
We tend to view decay passively, just as a byproduct of time passing. But if you look at the mechanics of decomposition, it is an incredibly active, hungry process. Microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, they are performing complex chemical dismantling.
Yeah, they are breaking down complex carbohydrates and cellular walls, turning them back into raw nitrogen, carbon, and phosphorus.
And the text points out that without this deliberate mechanism, the material world literally could not exist. The Earth would run out of usable building blocks in a matter of generations.
You'd just have a planet choked by intact, dead matter, fallen trees from millions of years ago, animal carcasses that never degraded.
Right, a completely static environment. But because of decomposition, the corrupted is turned into wonder. Waste is transformed into valuable materials for the next cycle.
And the philosophical leap the text makes here is that a system this flawlessly balanced, where the end of one life cycle is the precise, chemically required fuel for the beginning of the next, well, it demands a thinker.
Exactly. It requires a considerate designer who orchestrated the recycling process so that life could be perpetual.
So we have this invisible law of decay maintaining the physical world.
Yeah.
But this framework suggests the design goes beyond just cleaning up physical waste. The text takes this exact same concept of rotting apples and applies it to the structural rot of human societies.
This is where the scope of the argument massively expands.
Oh, yeah, it really does.
The text introduces a thought experiment. We already know the physical disaster of a world without biological rot. But imagine if slave societies and feudal systems never corrupted.
Okay.
Imagine if ancient despotism was maintained forever, or if ancient original religions never decayed.
I want to push back on this a little because it feels like a massive conceptual leap.
It does, yeah.
Is it really fair to equate the biological rot of a piece of fruit on the sidewalk with the complex, messy political collapse of a feudal empire?
Right, it seems like a stretch at first glance.
I mean, one is literally bacteria eating sugar, and the other is peasant revolts, economic instability, and wars. Can we really call the fall of Rome decomposition?
It's a natural objection. But looking closely at the logic of the text, these are not separate mechanisms operating on different rules.
Okay, how so?
They are identical processes operating on different scales. Knowledge and culture are treated as tangible resources, exactly like nitrogen or phosphorus in the soil.
Ah, I see. So just as dead plants are broken down to fertilize new plants, ancient religions and civilizations are decomposed by the passage of time into raw knowledge and wisdom.
Meaning the decay of the old systems is an absolute prerequisite for the new ones to flourish.
If we look at a historical example, the rigid structure of the feudal system during the Middle Ages essentially locked up all the resources.
Right. Wealth, land, and education were hoarded by a tiny elite.
Exactly. The system became culturally stagnant.
But when that system began to collapse,
Mm-hmm.
when it decomposed due to plagues, economic shifts, and localized rebellions, it freed up all those trapped resources.
Yeah, it released localized trade, sparked new philosophical ideas, and created the cultural nutrients that directly fed the explosion of the Renaissance.
That historical decomposition is exactly what the text is highlighting. If the rigid structure of the ancient world never rotted away, modern civilization wouldn't have the space or the ideological nutrients to grow.
The argument is that this overarching rule of decomposition is applied so perfectly across both biology and sociology that it proves a single, flawless orchestrator of the timeline.
Wow.
Yeah. The collapse of an empire isn't a tragic accident of humanity. It is the cosmic recycling program deliberately composting that society so the next one can absorb its wisdom. If that invisible law of decay is maintaining the progression of history, the text then points us to another everyday phenomenon to prove this grand design. We move from the process of decay to the purpose of animal instinct, specifically the universe's magnetic alarm clock.
The focus shifts to the crowing of roosters.
Yeah.
It brings in a very grounded, pre-industrial reality. Before mechanical clocks or watches, humanity still needed to coordinate complex tasks in the dark.
Which is hard to do.
Very. The text details how people relied entirely on the regular, predictable crowing of roosters to determine the time during the night.
The schedule laid out is incredibly specific. Roosters crow 3 times each night at regular intervals.
Right.
The first crow is around 3:30 a.m., the second is around 4:30 a.m., and the last is right around dawn. In a pre-industrial village, the utility of this was massive.
Oh, totally.
If a hunting party needed to get ahead of the daylight, they would agree to wake up at the second crow. Or if villagers needed to gather for a harvest, they'd use the third crow as the signal.
It was an essential tool for human survival and coordination. But the text digs into the physical mechanism of how the rooster actually knows when to crow.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, the behavior is described as entirely involuntary. It is a conditioned reflex, an induction of the biological clock reacting to the stimulation of the magnetic wave of the Earth's magnetic field rotating to a certain angle.
Let's actually pause and look at the biology of that, because the science behind how animals sense the Earth's magnetic field makes this even wilder.
Really does.
It's a phenomenon called avian magnetoreception. For a long time, scientists didn't know how birds navigated or sensed time via magnetism. But it turns out many birds have specific proteins in their retinas called cryptochromes.
Yes, the quantum biology of this is just staggering. When light hits these cryptochrome proteins, it knocks an electron out of place, creating what's known as a radical pair.
All right.
And these pairs are incredibly sensitive to magnetic fields.
Meaning the bird is literally seeing the magnetic field of the Earth.
Exactly.
As the planet rotates through the night, the angle and intensity of that magnetic field change. The cryptochromes in the bird's eye detect that specific rotational angle, triggering a neural pathway.
Which fires off the biological clock.
Right, causing the rooster to involuntarily crow. It is a highly complex biomechanical trigger.
And that biomechanical trigger is the philosophical crux of the text's argument.
How so?
Well, the rooster is entirely unaware of the cryptochromes in its eyes. It is entirely unaware of the Earth's rotation, and most importantly, it is entirely unaware that its crowing is telling human beings the time.
Wow. So it is an automatic, involuntary behavior serving a conscious, highly specific purpose for someone else.
Exactly.
Which brings up the obvious question. Any skeptic looking at this complex biological reflex is going to say, well, that's just evolution.
Right, of course.
Why involve a greatest creator to explain a bird reacting to a magnetic field?
The text anticipates this exact evolutionary counter-argument. It actively rejects the standard scientific explanations for why roosters crow, systematically dismantling the biological utility of the behavior for the bird itself.
It starts with the territorial theory. The standard evolutionary idea is that roosters crow to warn rivals like, this is my territory, stay out.
But the text points out the logical gap in that theory. If the goal is to warn off invading rivals, why expend energy screaming at 3:30 in the morning?
Right, it is pitch black out.
Exactly. Predators are actively hunting, and rival roosters are asleep. A creature acting purely on survival instinct would be much better off conserving its energy in the dark, resting up so it has the strength to fight off actual daytime invaders.
Then there's the mating theory, the idea that the rooster is showing off to attract hens.
Yeah, and the logic used to dismantle this is wonderfully pragmatic.
During the day, hens are laying eggs, foraging, and keeping chicks alive. By 3:30 a.m., they are deeply asleep. They are not paying attention to a rooster crowing in the dark.
Not at all.
The text notes, the rooster would be much better off getting a good night's sleep to keep his energy up, so he can wait for dawn before spending time with his, quote, wives, concubines, mistresses, and wildflowers on the roadside, unquote.
It's a very humorous, humanizing way to describe farmyard social dynamics, but it serves a strict logical function. The text is eliminating the immediate biological benefits to the animal.
So if the crowing doesn't help defend territory at night, and it doesn't help secure a mate at night, what evolutionary advantage does it provide the rooster?
Exactly.
It's like looking at a smoke alarm in your hallway. You could analyze the smoke alarm and say, well, it's just a battery sending an electrical current through a sensor, which triggers a localized siren,
Right.
and you would be factually correct. But the wires in the battery don't care if you sleep through a fire. The smoke alarm was placed there by an engineer who does care about waking you up.
That's a great analogy.
But playing devil's advocate here, couldn't the rooster's crowing just be a useless byproduct of evolution? What biologists call a spandrel.
I see where you're going.
Maybe the bird's internal clock just misfires because of the magnetic field, and it happens to be useful to humans, but it wasn't engineered as a deliberate task.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of the text, that concept of a useless byproduct is exactly what is being fundamentally rejected.
Okay.
In this framework, there is a core law. There is no sound in the universe without a purpose.
Wow.
The text refuses to accept evolutionary spandrels or random genetic misfires. If an action occurs, especially one as regular, reliable, and mechanically complex as a rooster reacting to the planetary magnetic field at 3:30 a.m., it must have a deliberate, user-friendly design.
So the automatic behavior of the bird is real. The quantum biology of the cryptochromes reacting to the magnetic field is real.
Yes.
But the intention behind that complex biology belongs to the greatest creator. It was programmed into the bird specifically to act as a survival tool for early human civilizations before they could build their own clocks.
The unintentional automatic behaviors in nature are prearranged. The rooster's mindless instinct serves a conscious purpose for the progression of human life.
Which brings us all the way back around to the rotting apple on the sidewalk.
Full circle.
Whether it is the silent microscopic breakdown of biological matter turning into cultural and physical nutrients, or the loud 3:30 a.m. shriek of a bird reacting to the magnetic rotation of the planet, both of these everyday occurrences are presented as undeniable evidence of a super wisdom.
The text takes the phenomena that we most take for granted, the things we ignore or write off as just the way things are.
Right.
And it elevates them to the status of deliberate, brilliant engineering. The decomposition of a fallen empire and the morning schedule of a farm animal are both governed by the same flawless thinking.
It is a vision of a universe where absolutely nothing is wasted.
And absolutely nothing is without purpose.
So what does this all mean? We started today talking about how looking at a pile of garbage or a fallen empire usually feels like looking at chaos and entropy.
Yep.
But through the lens of this text, we've explored a framework where that decay is a perfectly calibrated system of energy conversion, a cosmic recycling program that allows the material world and human civilizations to exist at all.
It's incredible to think about.
And we've seen how the mindless instinct of a bird, driven by the quantum detection of magnetic fields, can be interpreted as a beautifully designed tool ensuring human survival.
It really forces a profound questioning of our own perception. If a rooster is entirely unaware that its biological reflex is serving a massive external purpose for humanity, we have to consider that we might be equally blind to the true purpose of our own behaviors.
That is the exact thought we want to leave you with today. If we entertain this worldview, this incredible logical architecture where every automatic, seemingly involuntary process in nature was specifically designed to serve a higher conscious purpose for someone else, what involuntary human habit or biological reflex might secretly be serving a massive cosmic function that we are completely unaware of?
It's a wild thought.
When you yawn, or when you dream, or when our own societies inevitably begin to decompose, what larger system are we fueling without even knowing it? Next time you see a fallen apple on the sidewalk, or hear a bird in the early morning, you might just be looking at the gears of a cosmic master plan hiding in plain sight.